All right, so I'm here with Cory Klippsten and Will Reeves. Cory Klippsten is the CEO of Swan Bitcoin and the author of the upcoming book, Bitcoin, Your Bright Orange Future. He also serves as an advisor to Riot Blockchain, Unchained Capital, and Bitcoin Venture Fund, TVP, and is a partner in Bitcoin Ventures. As an advisor, he has supported more than $250 million of fundraising since 2016, and as an angel fund, as an angel has funded 20 plus early stage startups. Before startups, Klippsten worked for Google, McKinsey, Microsoft, and Morgan Stanley, and earned an MBA in finance and entrepreneurship from the University of Chicago. Thanks for joining us, Cory. Will,
there's a short version of that, by the way, for next time. By the way.
All right, I will make sure. Will gave us the short version, and he's definitely more prolific than he's letting on with this bio. But Will Reeves runs Fold, the leading Bitcoin rewards app. So what I thought I would do is we would jump right into, for both of you guys who have built companies in the Bitcoin space, is why build a company in the Bitcoin space?
You know, I think both Cory and I think have shared building outside of the Bitcoin space. And personally, for me as a builder, I've never been more energized about the problem I'm looking to solve and the community I'm solving it with. And so I think it's pretty well established that Bitcoin is a mega trend that will be increasingly taking over the globe in terms of finance and value creation. So I think that's the obvious part. I want to be part of that. I want to contribute to that. I want to accelerate that. The other bit, I think building on Bitcoin gives you a couple unfair advantages. Number one, we're drawing from a community of people that are driven and passionate in ways that you do not find in other areas of technology. We have people that do more, go faster, and think much further than most other, I think, talent pools out there. We're inherently global. There's no nation we cannot interface with or hire from. So I think that is a huge piece, that passionate part in drawing from a global talent pool. The next one is that, hey, as a builder, you need to be obsessed with what you're doing and working on. And there's no more rich, constantly evolving environment to do that in than in furthering Bitcoin adoption around the world. So I think it's a couple big things that, for me, I can't imagine building anywhere else at the moment.
Yeah, 100% agree with all of those. I think underlying a couple of those is basically this idea of looking forward to what the world could look like, post Bitcoinization, or with just, Bitcoin spread much further, and kind of zooming up the adoption curve with 100 times more people understanding Bitcoin and owning a decent chunk of it, or storing a decent chunk of their net worth in the Bitcoin protocol, say in the next 10, 15 years or something like that. And a lot of people who have rational views on what that can mean for human prosperity and advancement feel very sort of mission driven to try to make that happen. And so I think that's kind of what underpins this amazing talent pool that Will and I and others in Bitcoin only companies get to draw from. And yeah, I mean, the result is really that you can have kind of an incredible all-star at basically every position in your company, because these are people that really want to help make Bitcoin happen. So it's a massive advantage. And the other thing that I think is really important is the Bitcoin brand. This is probably a top 10 global brand today, and anyone can use it to their heart's desire because it's community owned. And, this happens to be the most popular representation of the Bitcoin logo, but it's not like that's, there's no IP around that and no company owns it, and you can use it on any of your stuff all the time. And so kind of the organic reach and the community love and just sort of all the benefits that you get from being, associated with the top 10 brands today, which will easily be the number one brand in the world in 5 or 10 years. It's like, I often ask people, like, if you could sell like a brown fizzy sweet liquid, at 60 cents a can, and you got to call it Coca-Cola, but didn't have to split any of the profits with Coca-Cola, would you do that? That's what it's like when you market a Bitcoin product or service. So very bullish on that. And then
yeah, what kind of blew my mind going out to Bitcoin Miami earlier this year was just how many people there were just really cool to meet, right? Like I've been to a lot of conferences before, and a lot of times you meet a lot of people at these conferences and you just never talk to them again. And that was just not the case in Bitcoin Miami. Almost everyone I talk to, I still keep in touch with. And Will, you mentioned that the people in this space are driven and passionate more than other spaces. I was wondering if you could kind of expand on that. Like, what sets the Bitcoiners that you're hiring or the Bitcoiners that you have as customers apart from some of the other businesses maybe you've run in the past?
Some of it has to do with the problem we are hoping to solve and working on. Bitcoin is solving what I believe is the largest problem facing our planet right now. How do we value each other and our things, and what technology do we use to mediate that? It's a big thing, and it is extraordinarily multidisciplinary. So this is not a problem that only an engineer can solve or only an economics expert can solve. Really, this is something that is, a return to focusing on people with that kind of Renaissance ability, that multidisciplinary approach to solving an incredibly large problem. And so what that does is it creates people that are humble enough but driven enough to take on what is a very, very big challenge.
And what is that challenge, Will?
I think that challenge is rewiring the very foundation of how we mediate value and relationships between people. What do we use to coordinate action amongst the globe? And I believe we have been operating on a bad operating system to do so. We have been presented with a unique opportunity to rewire and swap out the infrastructure to something based on Bitcoin, which I believe will be the foundation for a better world in many ways. And so when you get such a hairy, big problem to solve that also requires people to have be rooted in a kind of multidisciplinary approach to world and problem solving at the same time of being humble people, I think you get you're filtering for a very special, specific type of person that has historically, I believe, always been the type of person that has brought upon these new phases of huge, phase shifts in technology or cultural change in this world. And we're seeing that amass around the Bitcoin in the Bitcoin community and increasingly infiltrating Bitcoin businesses and providing those kind of founding teams to get us there.
Yeah. So one of the questions I get quite a bit, especially running a meetup in town where we're bringing in people who are interested in Bitcoin is, why not some other currency? Why not Ethereum? Why not, any of these other things that people mention? So what is the reason to build on Bitcoin, or to be maybe to not orient your business around other crypto assets that also are gaining popularity today too?
Yeah, I think there are two very legitimate answers to that. One is if you're actually just looking at like crypto versus Bitcoin, and you're deep into this, lots of very smart people come to what I obviously believe is the rational conclusion that this is the only legitimate use for a blockchain is money, and monetary networks trend toward one, and so Bitcoin is going to be that thing, and so it's going to win the race. So if you're going to bet on building something on an upper technical layer above Bitcoin, or a centralized company around an ecosystem, then it should be Bitcoin. And very specifically in my case, because we actually sell the asset itself, nobody, as many arguments as you're going to get from altcoiners of using it for various different ways, there's no one that's saying that, blank altcoin is a savings technology. And, many of those people actually have, a majority of their stack in crypto actually in Bitcoin. So I think, even those folks acknowledge what Bitcoin is in the long term. And then from sort of just the, sort of Silicon Valley VC tech founder lens, one of the biggest problems in startups for the last 15 years has been essentially getting rug pulled by a platform. So if you build your business or your app or whatever on somebody else's platform, they can change the rules, they can ban you, they can extract rent from you with new terms. So you see that over and over again with, Zynga fighting Facebook over Farmville, or, whatever else, people building apps on some platform that gets denigrated, whatever. And, I know as much as somebody can know something that Bitcoin is going to be around. So I feel very confident spending time in my career. Like it's very low risk. So if you're thinking about like risk reward, well, the risk is very, very low building on this Bitcoin platform or building something in or around the Bitcoin protocol. And so then you're basically just left with, your own efforts, your operational know-how and your strategy and your hiring. And it's all just sort of reward. There's only one variable. The risk is kind of off the table, basically.
Are there educational hurdles for your customers? So when you're basically trying to court these new customers, what kind of education do you have to go through to kind of get them to understand maybe the value proposition for why they should use your service?
I'll go kind of short, and then we'll probably have more with Fold, because we just sell the asset itself. So 95 to 99% of our messaging is about Bitcoin itself. There's not that much we need to say about the Swan product. You go to swan.com and you just buy Bitcoin, and it's pretty simple. The big question is like, should I buy Bitcoin? And if I do, like, how much should I buy and how should I buy it? And we just try to make it really easy to buy Bitcoin any way that you would want to, whether it's automatic recurring purchase or a large one-time buy or buying into a trust account or some kind of international company or whatever it is. We just try to make that as smooth as possible. In a lot of ways, what we're doing is really just kind of like an Echo sign or a DocuSign effort. Like you're really just trying to smooth out the onboarding process and help people move some of their value out of the fiat system and into a better monetary protocol.
I'd say, Cory nailed it. Fold is operating what I consider at almost the furthest top of the funnel in terms of Bitcoin adoption. Our part of our value proposition is to remove all the traditional hurdles involved with the accumulator and getting involved with Bitcoin. Number one, the idea that there's far too many choices, and many people come to the space and think of this as crypto. And so what Fold does is we narrow the focus towards what we believe is the only currency that has achieved its product market fit or its promise of what it is intending to be. And there's a reason why there isn't a Fold on Ethereum. There is a reason why there isn't a Fold of other products. That demand is just not there. It's not quite that difficult to build what we've done. And there's prolific building going on in the communities of other coins, but you won't find a Fold of the other. And that tells you something, is that people, when they're talking about accumulation and earning over a long period of time, Bitcoin is the only asset that even comes close to providing that value proposition with some way to actually back that promise up. And so for Fold, it's a really clear thing for us to do, is how do we narrow the focus and really elevate Bitcoin's value proposition to an audience that, number one, is steeped in the world of fiat and how that works and their options, steeped in the world of FUD on how the world of fiat views Bitcoin, but also steeped in the world of the idea of crypto, that there is always constantly a new technology that can come around. And so what Fold tries to do, we try to really narrow the focus, and we do that on Bitcoin, which is the only protocol that has, again, achieved any sense of product market fit or value that can be shared and enjoyed by anyone around the world. Fold can stand firmly behind that brand, that sugary carbonated stuff, and now this is a boon to your savings and economic future. So we go all in there, and what that does is it allows Fold to go far deeper on Bitcoin than what I kind of consider that first wave of 2015 to 2017 era startups that decided to go horizontal, steep their own engineering teams down with all of the various technical debt and overhead involved with incorporating other projects, splitting your focus. What is the value you're giving? And so for us, we decided to, hey, instead of let's limit possibility. Let's create a product that is so simple that meets users where they are today. We offer a debit card and a checking account and merchant offers, things that are very are ubiquitous in the fiat world, and we offer that now from the world of Bitcoin. So that allows you to have an experience with Bitcoin that is without the idea of risking your money. You can passively earn this in the back while learning about the assets. At the same time is that Fold is very community focused. So we are constantly drawing you into our Discords or Twitter or community events, things like that, that now bring you into a circle and a world of other people who are learning about this and also educating each other about it. And it's that mix between kind of a product that meets you where you are today, but rewards you with this new type of money, while at the same time pulling you into a new community that is helping you educate and essentially shepherding you down that rabbit hole is kind of what we focus on. And so we every single day are battling what are the hurdles to reaching new audiences, and there are a ton. Again, as I said, there's a lot of the FUD is absolutely a real thing that we deal with every single day. Biases towards the way a fiat system should work, and also if you kind of narrow into even the crypto world, how do we separate the noise from the signal there? And so for us, it's about narrowing focus, being very clear about the value we bring to our users, and educating them along that journey. And what you see now is, I saw the entire NFT market, for instance, I think was 20,000 daily active users participating in that market. That was Fold maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So when we talk about all these manias and the noise, but we really look at the numbers about where is true economic activity that's happening across a broad spectrum of people, Bitcoin is the only place where that is happening currently. And so for us, it's about almost putting on some blinders and really focusing on Bitcoin has allowed us to go farther, faster, I think deliver more value than other projects that chose otherwise.
And when you talk about economic activity, how do you navigate bear markets? I know that Fold at one point, you guys stopped working on it for a little bit, right?
Fold folded, yeah. We had to make, we had to really make this decision. Fold's initial structure was spend your Bitcoin on chain and convert that into a Starbucks gift card and get 10% off. The idea was, hey, a lot of people have this new thing called Bitcoin, but you can only hold it. Let's give them, more ways to express this. And not only express it, but show other people in the community around that, hey, this is real money. Someone's accepting it. I'm being incentivized to do it. All of these things that are really core to, how people expect their, rewards credit card to do today. But that business model was highly dependent on Bitcoin's own natural cycles. So bear markets, people are not very willing to spend the money, spend their Bitcoin, especially when they may have accumulated it at a higher price. And in bull markets, people start to spend, especially miners and kind of OGs that have been in the world for a while. But really, we just looked at ourselves and say, what problem are we solving? Are we unlocking the ability to spend Bitcoin for only the people that have Bitcoin? Or are we going to invert this problem? And we're going to give Bitcoin to all those people that don't have it yet. And so it was really that kind of phase shift that allowed us to, number one, escape all of the issues that we experienced with operating on Bitcoin's cyclical nature, create a more sustainable business model, but also one that had an infinitely larger TAM than what we were going after originally. So that was a very important shift in what we were doing. But we certainly in that process were facing the idea of, hey, we need to shut down Fold, rethink where we're going. And at that very time, that is when the 2017 Cambrian explosion of new crypto projects coming to market, all with very large checks to drop into any project's hands. And Fold decided to take a step back, rethink our approach, and stay Bitcoin only. And I think that served us well.
Yeah, no, that's I think restructuring it right in a way where instead of encouraging the user to sell Bitcoin, you're kind of encouraging them to accumulate it. And Swan's kind of famous for not having a sell button on their platform. And it's one of these things that I hear a lot from people I talk to. They're like, well, do people actually want to spend their Bitcoin, right? Because I talked to them about Bitcoin. I'm like, well, kind of the idea is you want to hold it. You don't really want to spend it. And they say, well, if I don't want to spend it, if I don't want to sell it, then how is this behaving as a currency? And this kind of becomes this, like, I guess, a deeper question into like, what is Bitcoin? But like, what is the opportunity here for people that don't want to sell their Bitcoin? Like, why do people not want to sell it?
Well,
why is that good?
It's just a matter of timing. Like, so if you have converted, most of your net worth or most of your liquid net worth into Bitcoin over time, or it became most of your net worth because it went up faster than your other assets did, then at some point you're going to have to spend Bitcoin, which is why, usually you hang out in, groups talking to people that are, actually spending Bitcoin for real and using these Lightning wallets, out of necessity, not just out of novelty. And most of them have been in Bitcoin since, 2012, 13, 14, maybe 16, 15, something like that. And, a substantial portion of their net worth is in Bitcoin, and they actually have to spend this stuff because they don't have anything else to spend. Right. And more people will be like that over time. So I've been saying for a couple of years, like, I expect that most people will be able to buy most goods and services priced in sats by the year 2035 around the world. Like that, it's very, very fuzzy, but that's kind of how I think about the time frame. Like, that doesn't mean that lots of people won't be going up the S curve until we get to most. More and more people every year are getting added into that category of like, actually, it kind of makes sense to spend some Bitcoin here because I don't have anything else to spend, and it's kind of expensive, and it's just easy because I'm buying something, from cross-border or whatever it is. It's just, it starts to become more and more convenient for more people over time.
In regards to like this, everyone will be selling their Bitcoin by 2035 and using it. I
don't think anybody will be selling their Bitcoin. It's just like, you'll have to spend it.
You'll have to spend it. Right.
Yeah. Some people will. And I think, I didn't even say that most people will be spending their Bitcoin. I'm just saying that most goods and services will be priced in sats in most places. That's all.
And when you kind of look at that, like, how do you see our road to getting there? Is this a road, right? Like there's various players in that space, right? There's the individual who's purchasing Bitcoin and holding it for the long term, and then getting to a point where they're saying, oh, I want to spend it. There'd be the business that's like actually implementing these things and building these applications, and then accepting the Bitcoin. And then there would be, I guess, maybe like the city or the state or the nation that begins to also like encourage that. Like, where do you kind of see where we're at now, and how do you see that kind of evolving over the next, say, 10 years?
I'll go first because Will probably have a longer answer, but this whole thing about like merchant adoption of Bitcoin, it's much more effective if you have a bunch of customers asking to pay in Bitcoin than just hanging up a sign and like saying like, I only accept Bitcoin, or, feel free to pay in Bitcoin. This thing is demand driven, as all things in capitalism are. People respond, and entrepreneurs respond, and businesses respond to demand from customers. And when customers actually demand to be able to pay in Bitcoin, then you're going to see, venture scale returns for every single company involved in Bitcoin payments, and all of this stuff will just kind of get built out fairly quickly, both on decentralized and centralized layers on top of Bitcoin. But it's going to be driven by the pace and scale of consumer adoption and demand for being able to pay in Bitcoin.
Yeah, we've played on both sides of that. On how do we get merchants and others to accept it? It's an interesting question, but more and more, this all follows the what I believe is nothing quite needs to happen really, and the reason why is because we found with merchants the fastest way to get them to adopt Bitcoin is actually not to show them that they'll get another 1,000 customers, but it's to show that they need Bitcoin on their balance sheet and they want it. And this is the best way to start accumulating. And so I personally believe merchants will start accepting it as they value it themselves and actually want to hold it from customers. Demand is growing. It's there, right? We see it. I think OpenNode just revealed a wonderful hockey stick chart of Lightning payments happening as a result of opening up El Salvador. And what we're seeing right now, there's all these pieces, as you mentioned, Clay. There's people, there's corporations, there's just merchants, there's nation states, and these and Bitcoin adoption experiments are live, happening all around the globe right now with various amounts of participation from those groups. Some is heavily retail focused and driven. You have some nation states where actually retail is pretty small, but but the government itself understands that it needs to have a position. There are others that, in the United States, clearly leading with, corporate adoption on balance sheet, things like that, strong retail. There's a lot. And then you have El Salvador, which is existing pure retail interest, and then ladders up to a kind of government approach that then right now is clearly seeing an explosion of corporate interest there. And so I think we're seeing kind of this Rubik's Cube being played with all around the world right now, which is, again, one of the best things about Bitcoin, is that this experiment is not just in a jurisdiction of a country or at the efforts of one startup that's pushing it forward. This is happening organically across the world. And we're starting to see that Rubik's Cube come into formation in various pieces all around the world in encouraging ways, whether that's on the spend side, whether that's on the savings side, whether that's on the unit of account side, whether that's on the, hey, I just need to protect myself side. All Bitcoin has beautiful examples of it succeeding exactly as what it's supposed to do already today here. And it's very, very different depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, let's add on to that. Like Bitcoin is only complicated for people that don't need it. When somebody needs Bitcoin, it's not that complicated. It's just because you need it and you make it happen. And this is what we see with the explosion of usage in some countries like Nigeria and a few other places around the world. Like they actually need Bitcoin because their local system is kind of busted, or they have currency controls that are getting in the way of entrepreneurship, and people very quickly figure out, how to use Bitcoin, how to transact with it. Like it's not that hard. The resources on the internet, and you can figure it out. It only feels complicated because, maybe in the West, you don't need it because everything else kind of works well enough. I often make the analogy to, speaking English. It's not that Americans are stupid and couldn't learn other languages. They just don't have to, right? But if you're in Europe, if you're in Switzerland and you want to get rich, you better learn German and French and Italian and English and Swiss German, otherwise you're not going to be able to do business, at the scale necessary to be able to make some money. So that's just kind of where we are right now. There are places in the world, people in situations where, it's totally worth their time and effort to really become fluent in Bitcoin.
And I think we are also seeing this in certain states and cities in the US as well, right? Like you can look at places like Florida, in Miami or Austin, that it really has begun to signal hey, we want Bitcoin, we want Bitcoin entrepreneurs. What do you guys see these cities, why are these cities trying to court Bitcoiners? What is the advantage here? Because we're very different, of course, like you said, than El Salvador.
It's kind of a different point. That's just recruiting economic activity as a politician, I guess, basically, versus nobody in Miami, for the most part, desperately needs to be able to use Bitcoin for medium of exchange today, right? It's more just kind of a branding thing for the local politicians or some kind of election wedge issue. I have a whole other, another great topic that we could hit if you want to, about Bitcoin being the best single issue voter issue or one of the best wedge issues, because there are tons of fans and no real voters that actually oppose it.
Yeah, I'd agree with Cory completely. This is pure signaling in the best possible way. This is Bitcoin working its magic in the background. Again, maybe these jurisdictions don't need it necessarily as are required to use it to go about daily life. Maybe it doesn't solve an immediate problem, but for politicians, it's an incredible tool for growing your constituency, for also the Bitcoin community itself. Look at this. Bitcoin, being someone who's a Bitcoin entrepreneur, is essentially operating in a ever present hostile environment against the traditional system. So I'm sure Cory has 5 or 6 banks backed up behind Swan, ready to go. I know Fold does. We are constantly thinking about where Fold needs to be in the best position to continue to grow. And truly, up until now, there's really no jurisdictions that are courting my business or Cory's business. In fact, the normal area where startups have grown in Silicon Valley, in some cases, has a hostile approach to a Bitcoin business and actively funds other projects that are going to be the next Bitcoin. And so someone who's coming out like a Francis Suarez or other politicians when they signal to Bitcoin, they're actually signaling to a huge segment of the tech community that represents a lot of economic activity, that represents rent, that represents hiring. That also just represents a feather in your cap. Entrepreneurs like myself and others are actually looking for more friendly jurisdictions. I would like to have a smaller list of risks facing Fold, right? We're a startup. We have enough. We're already working on a very big project. That's a whole nother layer to it. Now, if I have a politician and others courting and offering a less risky, more supportive environment to grow my business, my ears are open, and I'm not loyal right now to any existing jurisdiction, because again, most have not been friendly to this. And so I think what you're seeing is that kind of political arbitrage. It doesn't take much to say Bitcoin accepted here or that, but the benefits that you get, both feather in your cap, entrepreneurs legitimately looking to relocate, could represent a very strong, powerful force for your own political campaign.
I think that is an awesome place to wrap this up. I think we've unfortunately hit our 30 minutes. I wish we could have an hour and a half. But did you guys have anything else you wanted to say before we kind of end it?
I'll say, to all those listening here, I think oftentimes we look at Bitcoin as being a small kind of environment or community of people. You look at political action groups around the United States, we are one of the largest right now. We represent political power, economic power, and we have a plan to look at where we want to go. We actually know where we want to go and have a plan to do so. And so whether you want to interested in getting involved working with a Bitcoin startup, actually Cory is behind Bitcoiner Jobs, which is, I know Fold has found some great candidates through there that I would absolutely encourage you to go. We are hiring. Swan's hiring. Everyone's hiring. The space is
Bitcoinerjobs.co.
Bitcoinerjobs.co. So take a look there. Plenty of incredible projects to join. Whether you want to be investing, again, I'm actually just going to be hyping Cory. We also have Cory's AngelList fund that we have there that will get you connected to some of the best projects in the space, and then on the other side of getting involved in terms of educating your friends and family, there's incredible content being pushed out there. And so lean into these Bitcoin businesses that are here, use the products, let us know. But ultimately, if you want to take the next step, there are jobs here. There's education opportunities. There's really many places that you can fit in to growing Bitcoin as a movement, and companies that are supporting that. So appreciate all the time here. It's been fun.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Will.
Yeah. Can I give the audience a gift real quick?
Yes.
It's just my personal favorite book to give to people to get started on Bitcoin. Is called Inventing Bitcoin. It's 2-hour read or 2-hour listen. And I recruited the author to my company so we can give it away for free now. So if you go to swanbitcoin.com/free book, you can grab an ebook or an audiobook of that. I think it puts you on a real firm footing and gets you started out of the gate in a really good way, kind of understanding what this thing is about. So feel free to grab that.